I will pray. Guess I haven't had to do that in a long time. So,
All right.
dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you for our many blessings, for our opportunity to go to BYU, Idaho, and for the blessing that is to be part of thy church. We ask that thou would please help us to have thy spirit with us tonight, that we may be able to accomplish what we need to. We may be able to be effective in our communication, that we may be able to understand the core principles of what we're being taught. We ask, Lord, that thou would please protect us throughout the evening. We say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
All right. So, basically, the NHL and the NHLPA are kind of at war with each other in this case, and they go back and forth in these adversarial negotiations where no one's willing to agree to anything, and so they aren't making any money because they're getting locked out repeatedly and for a really long time. So, which is so crazy.
Yeah.
I guess let's start with the NHL. How would you describe the culture of the NHL? Like, what are the strengths and weaknesses of it?
I think I'm pulling it up here so I can remember. Hold on. Sorry.
No.
Off the top of my head, just the NHL is obviously pretty popular, mostly among Canadians, but I would say the strength of it is it draws from like a different crowd, I think. I mean, you have obviously the bigger ones like the NBA, the basketball, the football, the baseball. The NHL is like quite a bit different because it's just a different type of sport, and I think it draws a lot of different types of people. So I don't know. It's kind of a broad question. Like, what's the strengths of it? I guess I don't know. I think that's a strength. Is it's quite a bit different, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah. It mentions in the case that all the owners of the teams are all these billionaires, and that they're not close to the issue. Like, this is kind of business for them, and I think that's both a strength and a weakness, because I think these hockey players can get really close to the issue.
Yeah.
And whereas the NHL are the owners, and it's like an investment for them, so they have kind of a a mentality of trying to make it work, whereas sometimes I think jocks can be a little in the issue too close. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, it totally makes sense.
But they've got a really, really adversarial leader, and they are they're billionaires again. I mean, they're acting like billionaires. They're billionaires that are acting like billionaires. So.
Right. Yeah.
So, what are the main issues? Like, what are the biggest things that need to be fixed here?
So the main number one, by a long shot, I think, issue is obviously the salaries of the players, and the NHL it's in one word, money, right? The NHL is claiming that their revenues aren't or it doesn't make sense to them to keep paying the players that they're paying them because it's not making them money, right? So the whole ordeal is we're going to cut players' salaries and we're going to make a salary cap. That's what the NHL is saying. And then you have the NHLPA that's like, no, like the players agreed to these terms or whatever, and they're only going to play for what they've been playing for because that's what it's worth, you know?
Right.
So the issues kind of with the players and the NHL is money between them and, you know, the distribution thereof, right?
Yeah. I definitely think that it's a big issue that everyone wants to win, because the NHL, they need a win. You know, they need to make money. the organization itself isn't making money when they're paying their players inordinate sums of money and being kind of manipulated into that. Whereas the NHLPA, they need a win because they're the players. They're the people that are doing it, and they can't just let all of their salaries, etc., be whittled away to nothing.
Exactly.
NHL wants to make more money, kind of thing. But one can't exist without the other. So throughout this whole case study, they're talking about who won which negotiation and who was considered the victor and who was kind of embarrassed and lost, and how they geared up for battle. And I think that was definitely the biggest issue, is that no one was like, all right, how can we make this good for everyone? Everyone was just kind of like, all right, I'm going to win. And that doesn't help anyone. Nothing.
Yeah.
Doesn't help. So, and when you got down to the real issue at the end, where it was kind of like with the big lockout and all the players were saying, I don't care, I just want to play hockey. But really it's the people in charge who are just trying to make a big deal out of something that's not quite as big.
Yeah.
So, what would you do if you were the NHLPA? What would you do to resolve the situation?
So if I was part of the NHLPA, not a player, but part of their association,
Right.
Obviously the players love hockey. They want the NHL to do good because they're part of it. So if, as a representative of the players, I would say okay, what is the fair amount that we can pay the players to where the NHL is still successful, without compromising anything that's crazy in the past, like a massive change per se that will shock the players, because some players are kind of drama when it comes to money. I'm only making 200 million. I want 250. It's oh my gosh. Some of them live the lifestyle to where they have to have that money that they think they're going to be getting. So it can't be too much of a drastic, but there has to be, it was talking in the readings about the negotiation zone or whatever that's called, that zone. I like that. I think as a person in the NHLPA or whatever that was, the Players Association, I think immediately right off the bat, I would find a position in that zone and stay there and be like, this is what it needs to be. It makes sense for both sides. And then you need to debate and work out the details, right?
Right.
So I don't know if that makes tons of sense. Kind of not making sense, but.
Yeah. Well, and you mentioned specifically you would cap the salaries.
Well, they were talking about that as an option, because of the issue of they're not making enough money, their revenue is not high enough to make sense to pay the players what they're paying them. So basically they're not performing. It's hard to explain because hockey's not as popular as the other sports, right? But the players make a way higher percentage compared to other sports. I think it was said something like 70%, where the NBA or stuff like that, they pay them 50%. So I think their argument was hey, we want to pay you a lower percentage because that's what everyone else does, kind of deal. And also it makes sense for their business model for the NHL because they'll make more revenue. But I don't know what they ended up doing, but the salary cap, I think they have that in baseball and basketball. And I think it's a good thing because it keeps things equal between teams. So
yeah, I definitely think what I lean more toward is the linking the salaries to revenue, because that makes everyone want to just make more. You know, it doesn't mean the players can't make money. It just means that if one person wins, everyone wins. And it also makes their salaries something they kind of have to work for almost, I know they work for them, but it makes them something that isn't just like, this is always going to be here and I'm going to be a $200 million player for the rest of my life kind of thing. It's something where they stay on their toes, and that fosters positive competition among the players, which I think makes a better game.
Yeah.
I think that would be a good idea to definitely talk more about. I would, I forgot what I was going to say. In terms of the NHL, I think that they need to stop making statements and start asking questions, because it seems like the NHL, they will put forth a proposal and then the Players Association just shoots it down. And the Players Association throws something at the NHL, and the NHL just shoots it down. And back and forth and back and forth. And no one's like, okay, well, what are the concerns here? How can we move past that? How can we resolve this issue while not taking away this freedom? No one's asking questions. There was not like a single question asked in this case study. It's all chess. So that's what I would do in terms of like the soft stuff that you can do to improve a negotiation. The hard stuff, I would definitely pursue linking pay to revenue, because really that's how the rest of us get paid.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
So,
and I think just like from a negotiation standpoint, it makes sense to be like, we're going to link it to the revenue, because this, you'll get the percentage off of whatever this is. That way it's like a win-win. Like the players will still get paid a bunch probably, and the NHL will not be in any issues. So really both sides, it's more secure of a job, right, for the NHL players, because the NHL will be going strong, and it's good for the NHL because they're going strong. So it's just a win-win, right? They still get paid a ton. They're already making tons of money in the NHL. Like these professional athletes make tons of money because people pay to go see them. So
yeah, well, and there's nothing saying that people shouldn't make a lot of money if they can, but I guess my thing is, if the NHL goes broke trying to pay these high salaries because they're not making enough money, everyone loses.
Yeah.
You know? Everyone loses. And if the Players Association continues to strike because their freedoms are being taken away, everyone loses, because there are no hockey games and no one's coming and paying to see them. So you can't exist without each other, but they're completely playing the game well, you know.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
It's easy to see that from the outside. I think a lot of times we get caught up in those things where we find ourselves, or maybe don't even ever find ourselves, but we kind of do this kind of thing where we polarize ourselves. And I know, well, maybe I do this kind of thing sometimes where I polarize myself and want to stick to my guns or whatever, but in reality, life is about relationships and connections and win-win situations. So
yeah,
it's much harder to apply than to write about in a case study.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I think one of the thoughts I had just as I was doing the case is like, what if the NHL, or what if the players like didn't get paid anything and they had no NHL? What would those hundreds of players be doing in their lives, right? Could they live without the NHL? And then you take the NHL, it's like the same deal. It's like they can't live without each other, like you were saying. So it's like they both want to find something that works, right?
Yeah.
So it's like,
absolutely.
it's funny how they're just fighting so much about it and not trying to like negotiate, but rather just like making a statement and then just like the opposite side, just like, are you kidding me? Shooting it down. And it's like really, like you guys are the team. You're a team, you know, kind of deal.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's such an adult game to play because it's all about these billions of dollars or whatever, but they kind of are acting like kids about it. You know?
yeah, it's kind of funny.
Funny. So how would you relate these principles to the gospel?
Hmm.
Would you relate these principles to the gospel?
You can always relate everything to the gospel,
That's true. That is true.
however creative you want to get. I think just like from a moral standpoint, though, like keeping your morals right, as far as like just being honest, and I don't know, just not trying to cut any corners or do anything illegal or that's hurts someone else badly. I don't know. I think, relating it to the gospel, that's kind of something I see.
I thought of the that parable that forget forget what it's called, but it's a parable where the guy hires a workman and says, I'll pay you this much to work the whole day.
Yeah.
And he hires someone several hours later and says, I'll pay you the same amount to work the rest of the day. And then he hires another guy in the very end of the day and says, I'll pay you the same amount to work an hour. And the first guy says, you screwed me over. I got paid the same amount as the guy who worked an hour. And he said, but you accepted it, and I feel like it's kind of the same way. And honestly, if I were the guy who worked the whole day for the same amount of money, I'd be kind of upset.
Yeah.
But
For sure.
I see the same thing going on here where people are making money, people are happy, but then when they start comparing things and looking at what the other people got in the negotiations, it makes them bitter and it makes them want to fight and it makes them not want to reach a positive conclusion, but only one that benefits themselves, almost out of spite, But I kind of terrible all the time in my life because that's kind of a common mentality of like, I worked harder and got the same amount.
Yeah.
And I've seen it actually recently. I bought a house and my husband and I both work and we don't have any kids. And so we're a little bit better off than my husband's brother who has 2 kids and his wife doesn't work. And they bought a house, but they got all these special deals because they're lower income and we didn't because we made more money. And I was like, well, that doesn't make any sense. It's like, I work hard, but not what the point is, The point is to help people like that who need a house, not to make me feel better that I work hard because I already have what I need, So anyway.
Yeah. That's happened to me now that I think about it. It just happened to me at my own work. So where like I did a lot of work in a certain sector and then they moved me to a different area and then that old area I was in, it just started like dominating because of the work that I did. And the new guy in there is making commission off of like all of my work. But I can't do anything about it and I'm still in a great position. Like I shouldn't be like complaining, but it just stinks sometimes to see like someone come in and reap your hard work. It's like I've been working 10 hours and he's only been working 5 minutes and he's getting the same as me.
Yeah.
Slash more by a lot.
Yeah. That's kind of a hard thing because you want things to be fair, But I guess if everything works out in the end, it doesn't necessarily need to be fair. But that's a hard concept for me to swallow. I'll get there someday. But. Okay, so do you want to know what actually happened?
Yes, I really do.
Okay, so they lost that season. They closed out the season. And they were so upset that they had to do that everyone kind of came together. They went in a kind of like when they wrote the Constitution, they went and locked themselves up for 10 days. And, there was like a 5-hour break or something. They were just in there all together for a long time, both councils. And they ended up, what did they do? They capped salaries at $39 million, but only for the first year. And that sounds like it was to like make up for the losses of the lockout.
Uh-huh.
And then player contracts were guaranteed. But they did link revenues and salaries, and they linked it to, let's see, uh, the salary cap would be adjusted each year to guarantee players 54% of total NHL revenues. And there would also be a salary floor. So it wouldn't ever let anyone make under a certain amount, but not over a certain amount, which
Oh,
I think is good because
yeah.
it protects them in both directions. It protects both people. The players' share will increase if revenues rise to specific benchmarks, while revenue sharing will split a pool of money from the 10 highest grossing teams among the bottom 15. So basically, they put a lottery because there weren't results to see who could play in the teams because there was no season. They put a lottery in place in which all the teams had like a weighted chance at first pick to go in. And the lottery was kind of tilted so that teams with fewer playoff appearances over the last 3 seasons had a better chance of getting higher picks, which is interesting. I never even thought about that. But in terms of the guys, what's his face? Sorry, it's all like scattered. I was trying to put it all together, but the other article said that who's the guy who was arguing for the Players Association?
Wasn't it like Phil something? Phil Nevitz?
Goodenow? Oh yeah, Goodenow. So the Players Association Executive Director and General Counsel, Bob Goodenow, seen by many as the biggest villain in the lockout because of his hardline stance against a salary cap, resigned from his position 5 days after the agreement was ratified amidst criticism from many of his constituents. He was replaced by Ted Saskin, formerly Senior Director of Business Affairs and Licensing for the Players Association. Saskin was officially named Executive Director of the Players Association on November 25th, yada, yada. And then the NHL Executive Vice President and Chief Legal Officer, Bill Daly, was promoted to Deputy Commissioner after the lockout. And those were the 2 guys. I don't know if you remember from the case, but they were the 2 guys who were a little bit more reasonable. Like,
Yeah.
were considered to be like more representative of their people. So actually, an interesting effect that the lockout had on the NHL was that the team values went up. So the franchises actually increased in value. So ultimately, everyone was okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, interesting. What I find interesting is that Goodenow resigned because he lost. You know, it's
The
like
baby.
he's like, I give up, I quit. But I think that there are worse things that could happen because he might have done some good things strategically for them, but I think ultimately he was cancerous to the team.
Yeah.
So it was interesting in the case. It was like, it talked about how when they were all in the heat of it, it was kind of disturbing because it was only the 2 guys. You know, it was like only Bettman and Goodenow arguing, and everyone else was just like there.
Yeah.
So clearly an individual vendetta situation and not as much an organizational situation.
Crazy.
All right. Well, anyway, that's what happened.
That's cool about the lottery picks. I think they do that in all other sports too.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not really big on sports, but I thought it was cool. Cool. Well, Evan. Thank you.
I do not know what just happened. I clicked on a different tab and it like refreshed something. I'm having all sorts of issues with my computers. It's 1 week this one won't have sound, and then the next week that one won't. I don't know what happened.
Good, you have both of them. They make a whole computer between the two of them.
Seriously.
Well, I think we're pretty much done anyway, unless you have any other thoughts.
No, I think that's about it. This was a different kind of case, right? To like just the questions and stuff, but
yeah, it's a really short agenda. Yeah.
cool.
You already did your case write-up?
Yeah.
I'm finishing mine. I don't know why, but I always end up finishing it after the.
Yeah, that's probably smart because then you can add certain things that you wouldn't have thought of or something like that. So.
It's really just poor time management, but.
Or poor time management. I'd like to think otherwise.
All right, dude. Well, I will probably see you next week. Do we have one next week?
I think our last one, right?
No, we just have our accountability presentations. Do we have to do that with oh, we have to do it in the group meeting.
Oh, really?
So I look forward to hearing your group presentation.
Been working on it.
Okay, cool. Well, I'll see you then.
Yep, sounds good.